As a follow-up to the last game, after watching the tape, we were pretty accurate in our post-game conference, and the defense played very well and made some big stops. We all know that. Thought they did a good job of containing their quarterback, who's elusive and I think is obviously going to be a good player in this league. Offensively, we actually ran the ball a little better than what I thought. We had 3 plays where we got hit behind the line for a yard or two, and I guess that kind of clouded my image of the other plays where we did get the 6, the 8, the 10-yard run. So I felt a little bit better about that situation. I thought Texas had a really good game plan defensively. The quarterback had 4 throws that were what I would call not as accurate as he would want them to be, which is still fairly common. One of the interceptions that he threw, we had an issue with the route, not necessarily just the throw. And so we were fortunate that Ben Grogan was excellent for us, and to go on the road and win in conference play. We're pleased, and back to the real world and getting ready for the next opponent.
You've won the last 4 times in Austin. Impressive. First team ever to do that.
We're really pleased with our team and the organization. I mentioned that to the players, that the guys that have been around here for 4 and 5 years, that again, they're still a talented team and they can run and make plays. They're improving, and to go down there and win and play in those conditions and that environment is always a plus. And I think you're going to find that in the league this year. There's a lot of parity. There's teams that can play, and each week will be a battle.
Talk about Grogan and just what he showed you, being able to make those clutch kicks and even to do it again on the tying one.
We've got a lot of confidence in Ben, and when he gets it off before the clock goes off and hits it, he's a pretty good player. And so I thought that his body language was really good. When I watched him on the sideline, I watched him go out to kick. His demeanor is easygoing, low-key, and I think that's positive. So we're very proud of him. And you have to have a snap, you have to have a hold. And that's one thing that I think people forget out there, is that the center's got to throw it back there and the holder's got to put it in the right place, and he did, and you got to make the kick. So it's very well executed with those guys.
For him, he had some struggles earlier to be able to bounce back and
sure.
Do it.
And I think that's his demeanor allows him to do that. He doesn't get too worked up, and he doesn't get too excited. When he makes them, he's okay with it, and he doesn't run around and jump. And everybody's different, and I think that helps him in being a kicker.
What do you see from K-State so far in film?
I've watched some, not all of it. They could very well be better up front in their front 7 than what we saw this last week. Not that I wasn't anticipating seeing that, but I'm very impressed so far with their defense. They have the experience at the corner spots, same guys that have been there. It's like they've been there for 10 years. But their interior 7 seem to be very good football players. I hadn't watched as much of the other side of the ball yet. I have seen them play on TV in their special teams, in that their schemes are the same for the most part of what they've done forever since I played against them out here in 1989. I mean, in our perception is his consistency there is really the same as it's been each year.
Coach, you know what you can do when you get an open week to prepare, and they had one of those early open weeks. I think every coach loves that one that splits non-conference and conference. Can't do anything about it, but is it concerning that K-State and Bill Snyder had that open week to get ready?
It's always concerning when you play a team that's had an extra 4 practices to prepare and rest their team, but we all go through it, and those are part of the game and the season that we can't control. So we continue with our routine and get our players ready and go out and play hard on Saturday.
Mike, we got to see our first dose of Rennie as your featured back. Looking at film, I mean, what did you like about his performance?
I liked his aggressiveness. I liked how he kept his pads down. He ran hard. Showed signs of being durable and tough, and we were pleased with his performance.
It seems like he has a real strong initial burst at the point of attack. When you have a young offensive line, does that maybe help in your run game, having a guy who can immediately get out there and get a feel?
Yeah, we liked him running downhill, and he ran through arm tackles and dropped his pads and ran through some second-level defenders. And for the most part didn't take lost yards. He had one play where he did lose 3 yards, but he was good in what we asked him to do, and didn't seem to get fatigued. And like I said, we liked the output and the performance that he gave us in that game.
You said before he's a back who's usually better when he's fresh,
Mm-hmm.
but if he's going to be a guy who's going to get more carries depending on what your running back situation is, how comfortable do you feel having him out there for 20 plus if that's the case?
We're okay with him being out there for 20 plays, and I think that with Chris should practice Tuesday, and we'll see how he feels as the week goes on. But I would anticipate him being ready to play. If not, then Jeff Carr gets repped and gets some more reps, and then obviously with Raymond, we get him some work. But I would say that Rennie should be able to carry the ball 20 times comfortably.
What's the difference in your defense from last year to this year? Would you say it's maybe maturity with these guys, just another year of experience, or is there something else you've noticed? Are they more vocal than what they were?
Well, yeah, maturity and depth. A number of those players that were out there last year were young and immature, and they're another year into it, and so that allows us to play too deep more than we would last year, and it keeps them fresh. And I thought our players were fresh and healthy in the game, and overall that helps you in the long run, in our opinion.
I see them getting so many sacks. I think you guys are have a few guys in the top 8.
We've got good players up front, and I think our coaches have good schemes, and I think they have a lot of energy. And so far it's been good for us, giving us a chance to get some sacks and some negative yardage plays.
I think it was a case of Mason finally maybe realizing the pressure that may have helped cause him after that strong start to fall off a little bit Saturday.
He didn't fall off as much as you would think when you watch the tape. He needs to play better, but I know the general feel from the public was on a scale of 1 to 10, he was a 3, but he was really a 5. And so there was a couple times they had guys in his face, and I think the ball they dropped, they ran in for the touchdown. It just looked so bad that everybody had a general impression from that point on that he's had a bad day. If you go back and look through the game, he made several throws on 3rd and long where he had defenders right around him, and he stepped up in the pocket and put the ball right on the money. So I joked with him a little bit that he was kind of like a guy that hits 35 home runs and strikes out 200 times in the big leagues. We got to kind of find that happy medium there in that game. But sometimes that's going to happen. We want him to play better. He wants to play better because he wants to play at a high level each week. But in the world we live in now, with quarterbacks that aren't juniors and seniors, and even guys that are in the NFL that are the best in the world at what they do, sometimes small variables can force them into situations where they don't play as good as you want. I was changing clothes last week at practice, and I heard the commentating about Andrew Luck, and if he's not on his game, I'm going to guess that he's probably on his game. He's a good player, but you can get a kind of a bad taste in your mouth, and I think that's what happened with him. But he does need to play better, and there's times he needs to pull the ball down, and if he gets a little bit antsy, if you remember early in the season, I mentioned to you that he has to distribute the ball to the players that can make plays. And then it's okay if the defense makes a play. Don't try to do too much. Play within the system. And that's really, he got out of the system 4, 5, 6 times in the game. And when you play teams that have speed and you get out of the system a little bit, unfortunately bad things can happen to you. And that's what happened to him on Saturday.
What happened on that first touchdown pass he had. He was looking like Johnny Football, running around, shedding blockers, finding Shepard back there.
He tried to do too much, and he ended up making a play. And it's a good example of what I was talking about. Sometimes that works for you. It's hard to coach because when he comes off the field, it's hard to say, hey, don't do that, because you got a touchdown. The ball should have been in a different location earlier in the play, or he wouldn't have been in that situation. And then you do it later a couple times, and it doesn't work to your advantage. So there's some give and take there, and we try to – you want most of what you do on offense to be orchestrated. It doesn't always work that way.
Some of his issues he had, is it as simple as, okay, here's a guy making his 7th career start, he's still learning the speed of the game, he's still kind of figuring everything out, or based on his history, do you feel like maybe he's past that as being an excuse for some of the issues?
I think everything you said's right. Again, he's still a young player, and he's at a position where it shows up more than others. But he's working through some of it. He had, again, 4 to 5 errant throws, and if you throw the ball 35 times a game, and I don't know how many times he threw it to be exact, but on average, you're going to have 3 or 4 throws a game you don't like. So we would like to get that decreased, get those numbers down a little bit, but right now that's kind of where we're at.
You mentioned, I think on the teleconference this morning, he had some numbing in his hand. Do you think that affected his mechanics and rhythm at all?
No. He got hit and kind of had a little bit of numbing in his hand for a while, but I don't think that affected anything. So, as a follow-up to that, we have JW could play 5 plays in a game or 25 plays in a game. It's hard for us to tell. And sometimes we feel like we need a little bit of a change of pace just depending on what's happening with our schemes, our matchups against theirs. And at that time, he had a little bit of numbness, and so we just said, hey, we'll go with the other guy for a little bit, and then he's fine. We put him back in.
This may be an unusual question, me being on the media side of this, but have you ever thought, with the age of social media and the many outlets and formats of media that exist now, what it would be like to be the quarterback? I mean, if you were playing in this state where every throw, every step is examined by so many more people than it was when you played.
Well, it's interesting. It's the world we live in, and we all accept it. And I mentioned to the team that my phone's like everybody else's that is on our team, players and coaches. When the games are over, you have 30 to 40 text messages of everything that you did wrong, and you get 3 or 4 messages of what you did right. And it was interesting in that to travel on the road and to play down there and to win, that they've elevated Oklahoma State football to a point where it's not good enough, that people want more. They want you to dominate. And so I told them, I said, you guys have done a great job. Now you have to live with the flip side of it. And that sometimes it's okay. When we got to a certain point in the game, I wanted to try to win the game on defense. And that's a decision that I have to make at times, and I can be wrong. But those are calls that I make, and there was a point in the game that I felt really good about our defense and the way they were playing. And so I wanted to try to minimize the percentage of opportunity for mistakes and let the defense continue to play to see if we could find a way to win the game. And that all kind of falls into the same opinions that are across, the country really, with our team and our players, and especially being a quarterback. And that's just part of it, and we're all okay with that. So ultimately what pays the bills.
Coach, could you talk a little bit about Kevin Peterson? I know he was the defensive player of the game, and it looked like to me he made several open field tackles, maybe one to
He played really well. The screen pass that you're referring to, they had 2 big guys coming at him, and he was the last guy left. And he played a little front yard football with them and set him up and tricked him and went around him and scooped the guy's ankles up and got him down. And made a number of plays, played with a lot of speed. And that's what he should do. He's mature, he's experienced, he's been there. And it's time for him to make those plays, and he did. Those are the type of plays you have to win games on the road like that in those difficult situations. We did fire him from the corner one time on the quarterback, and he had a sack and threw a no-hitter right there at the point of attack. We got to get him to come to balance and wrap and get the guy down. Sometimes they try to go for the big hit. Big hits don't matter. We need to tackle, and we need the guy down right there. So, but he's been really good for us. His attitude's been good. His leadership's been good, and he made plays. He's been there. He understands. He's played in a lot of big games.
In the same way you talk about Kevin's experience, does that play into in a game that's as strange as Saturday's was, having JW on the field, his age and being a fifth-year senior and being almost that Kevin Peterson, Ryan Simmons type on the field for the offense?
Yeah, experience is important in those games, and that we try to instill in the players that there's going to be a lot of ups and downs. And we start that when they show up in August, that there's going to be conditions. There's going to be 90,000 people against you. There's going to be heat. There could be bad calls by the officials. You're going to miss a tackle. You're going to throw a pick. You may fumble. A lot of things can happen. But ultimately, you have to play the next play. And with experience, those type of players, they've been there. They realize it's all going to be okay. And it's hard to fast forward that process. It's kind of the way life is. You learn as you go. And when you're earlier and younger, you just don't know as much. But you get a little better each day, and that's kind of where you're at with young players.
On their one touchdown drive, and I bring this up only because this guy might not get enough credit for what he's doing. One player was missing for a big chunk of it. It was Jimmy Bean. Mm-hmm. I think he got in on the last play, and Swoops came and ran the opposite direction. And with Oakbun, it was great. He got Defensive Player of the Week. But talk a little bit about Jimmy Bean on that other side and what he's doing, because he's pretty good.
Jimmy is really matured as a person and as a player for us, and he's about 15 pounds heavier than he was the last 3 years he's played here, and so his body is in a position and condition to be a good player at this level, and he plays hard. Jimmy plays really hard and runs. There was one time that their quarterback was taking off and running, and Jimmy, it was just he and the quarterback, and Jimmy took a flat angle and ran him down, and just played with great effort. And again, that's the type of plays and the type of players and maturity that you have to have in order to win games in this league, especially on the road.
Another guy on defense who was impressive on Saturday, Seth Jacobs running around the club on one hand, getting an interception. He's been a guy who's been able to play through some injuries and still be real productive. What about him has made him capable of doing that?
Well, he's good. He's a good person that plays with great effort. He likes to play, and he's very savvy, and he's very intelligent. He's in the right place at the right time. We've been very fortunate here at that spot. We've had a good run over the last really 5 or 6 years where we've had intelligent football players that are in the right spot at the right time. And he got to play the game for a one-handed interception, essentially having a club on his hand. So he's getting a little more experienced each week, and he's been a good player for us.
You've mentioned that group of young guys who you're kind of learning more about as the season goes on. Did you see a little bit from Jordan Burton, especially at the end of the game when it was tied, I think on back-to-back plays he made stops on Hurd, one when Hurd was kind of already scrambling for a few yards?
Jordan is, from a mental approach, the speed of the game, he was floating around a 3 or 4. He's a 5 or 6 now. So he's getting there. And he's learning to play to the level of a Big 12 school and the speed it takes to be successful in games that we play against these type of opponents.